All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ore, for such an elaborate introduction. Um, Good afternoon to all my panelists. I hope we'll have a very engaging and insightful session today. So, just so we get right into it, because we are far spent on time, I'd like to start with, first of all, highlighting what the panel session will be discussing on. And today we're talking about transforming healthcare. And as an AI infrastructure company, we're really going deep into how we're able to leverage technology for better full-scale healthcare experience, for better technology-based. Most companies are looking at digital transformation now, looking at how AI can help improve the outcome of healthcare, basically. And as the insurance industry key players are in this room, we'd like to hear how some companies have been able to leverage digital solutions to improve that experience full scale for faster claims and better care. So I'd like to start with, first of all, going very surface level on the impact of technology on reducing some of the bottlenecks that we face in this industry. Claims processing time, the turnaround time for claims. And I'd like to first ask, what are major bottlenecks in traditional healthcare claims processing? So basically end to end, how has technology helped eliminate some of those bottlenecks that we faced? And I'll just first put this to Dr. Raymond.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. Traditionally, as an operator in the health insurance industry, one of the major challenges that we had, I would say we had because we've left that stage now, was manual documentations. It's been difficult generally to vet claims, upload claims, typing claims on Excel, do all those things. Man hour have been lost doing all of those things. And that actually leads to slow approval of claims, of giving PA codes to hospitals. And in other words, that also leads to dissatisfaction from the enrollee, because it increased waiting time in the hospital. And also, when those claims are sent in, one of the challenges again is when you're trying to upload those claims, it takes a lot of time, which means it delays reimbursement to the hospitals. So whichever we want to look at it, the traditional way of running claims management and provider management, manual documentation has been a challenge, and that manual documentation cascades into other issues that actually slows down the system. So what AI has done, basically, is to actually collapse that gap that you had. It makes it easier for us to manage our claims and actually increase the processing time by 50% actually. And that has been one of the game changers we have in my organization. So I think I've been able to answer your questions from that.
Yeah. All right. So building upon what you said, I would like to believe that some of the key KPIs for companies, when we're discussing customer satisfaction in the healthcare insurance industry, we are looking at faster claims processing. So now, how does faster claims processing improve the overall service experience? Now, full scale, from providers, the insurer, and also down to the patients that we are providing the services for.
All right. For the insurer, one of those things that he builds is better reputation. When you have a faster claim processing, just like the problems I highlighted earlier, it builds reputations, and that's actually helped organizations. For example, I'll use my organization as an example. I have close to about 200 corporate organizations, and in the last 3 years, we've done 100% retention. Why were we able to do 100% retention? Because of our processes. It's faster, it's clearer, and it's cleaner. It's cleaner. I would like to use the word cleaner because you can hardly pick issues, and if there are issues, you see them clearly and you're able to address them immediately. So that has actually helped my organization very well. So I know that it's better off.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So moving that on, I'd like to ask, put this out to anyone who would like to address this. What are direct benefits to each stakeholder when claims are processed more efficiently? For example, faster reimbursements. I'd just like to hear from a very executive point of view, what are direct benefits to the stakeholders?
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, to lay on what Dr. Osho was just mentioning, if we cast back to not so long ago, right? I'm talking about 6 to 10 years-ish. What normally used to transpire was you would need an army of human beings, people, right? In fact, a health insurance was as good as it was based on the number of people it had. So, up to the point that it affected regulation, right? And even up till now, there's still some battles on, I don't want to get into murky waters, but it will essentially involve you needed to have X number of people in this zone of the country, another army in this zone of the country, another army. So you had pockets of, should I say militants, if I can borrow that term. Now, I'm borrowing the term militants because these were people that, until proven otherwise, were the enemies of states to the stakeholders, particularly the providers. And so when the providers saw a group of specific people, it was war, right? Until proven otherwise. And one thing that, and I'm being practical here, one thing that was very, very key was a lot of the things happening were subjective, right? They weren't data-driven. They weren't empirical. So, for instance, a facility, to your question on stakeholder, a lot of facilities would just cite a group of people from a particular organization and just say, this meeting is deadlock. Nothing can happen. And so you can imagine when humans and attitudes and attributes and ego were the things controlling the subjectivity of how a claims process should work. It just shows you that nothing was ever really going to work, right? And so fast forward the hand of time, and then people like Curacao started showing up. And again, there was a problem. Problem was there were a few early adapters, and it was always a case of we can build it ourselves, right? From the perspective of even competitors for health insurance companies, is elevated to a level where, there's some companies out there that the healthcare providers pride to be the best health insurance provider because of the turnaround time to which they make their claims payments. Whereas 6 to 10 years ago, you were lucky as a healthcare provider if you were receiving your payment at least 30 days after you submitted. So what technology has done is to bridge the gap to show that it is indeed possible for you to receive your claims in real time. It's just a question of time before that becomes a game changer where everybody's insisting, like, look, don't tell us any stories that touch the heart anymore. You can pay your claims if you really choose to pay your claims. And that's the direction and trajectory that we see this going. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much for that very detailed feedback. And building upon that, I can hear a lot of feedback around how we are moving the direction of the future in healthcare insurance. And I'm very curious as to how, and I'll be directing this to you now, speaking at this side. So, I'd like to hear from a perspective of AXA. Now, how has automation helped insurers and healthcare providers in terms of, we're talking of now reducing errors, speeding up approvals, and improving accuracy. So I'd like to know how automation has helped these different processes.
Okay. So for one, even on the, good afternoon, everyone. Even on the internal in the internal side, it makes work easier and faster, right? You don't have to have people working overtime or having to sleep in the office just to get claims paid, right? Because if you don't pay providers' claims, it's going to impact the service that they give to your enrollees, of course, because they're waiting for money and cash is king, yes. So they have to get their money, and so the way to get their money is for them to get their claims, right? So automation, of course, makes it easier for even the employees to get their job done. It also reduces the amount of people that you need to get a task done. So automation really helps with that. So internal processes, workflows, or even you don't even particularly need a very big portal to create a workflow, right? Even just workflows, automations make it easier. On the enrollee side, it helps, and this is technology in general, it helps to make, it helps to simplify access to care, that they are able to easily access care. They can go, they don't even need to go with a card, right? You can just go say their number and they see their details pop up, everything that they need, pictures, data, but you can see the person right in front of you, so you don't have to. So it reduces their wait time, and so they can access care very, very quickly. And if you start talking about technology, of course, you talk about telemedicine, that's also access to care. And so sometimes people don't really particularly need to be at the hospital to be able to receive care. They can easily just talk to someone, right? So those are one of the few ways that automation has helped.
Interesting. So, building up on that, Muyiwa, I'd like to know how, from your point of view, how technology ensures a seamless, transparent, and stress-free experience. Now, being a player that is helping most insurance companies optimize and power that process, how have you been able to see that stress-free experience for insurance companies, and that now scales down to patients, especially when it comes to submitting claims and assessing benefits? How exactly would you give us, from your perspective, how technology is ensuring that process?
All right, thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be layering on what Dr. Reynolds mentioned earlier, and every other expert that I've said earlier. And one of the bottleneck that we've addressed is automating a lot of processes in the insurance system, and also like the healthcare as a whole. And I'm going to be just tailoring it down to one major process, which has actually we can see the testimonial even from patients and also from the insurer side of things, and is the experience of automating pre-authorization. All right. So before now, there have been a lot of issues from enrollees. Enrollees getting to the provider, waiting for ton of minutes. Why? Because there is a level of approvals that they need to get. They need to confirm policies and all that. So at this level, because they are women, so it's very hard for them to really say, oh, you are covered for this, you are not covered for it. So they need to still go back to the policy to say, oh, okay, you are covered, you are not covered. This period, create a lot of delays, right, in issuing out pre-authorization. But we have created a solution, all right, that helps insurers to create this pre-authorization in a few seconds, all right. And what this system does is to factor in the policy, all right, factor in eligibility, because you can imagine provider calling, the first thing they want to do is this really even covered? Is it even eligible, or active or not active? All right, at instance, the system is able to pick all those things and also evaluate the clinical necessity from what the provider are even submitting, then adjudicating it even at instance and issuing a pre-authorization. So with this solution, it just help the patient, all right, reduce that time, all right, and they have a better experience from the hospital, then also insurance, they don't have to like start building on multiple manpowers to, you know, get these approvals like in a reduced time rate, when we have a solution that can, you know, seamlessly just do this in few seconds. So with this, it has helped the patient, right, experience a better care, then also reduce that timing at the provider end. Yeah, thank you.
All right. So one thing we're seeing here is definitely in healthcare, time is a very important factor, and technology is helping to reduce wait time, helping to improve turnaround time for most processes. And I'm just curious, from what you explained, it means there's some real-time communication between the insurer, the providers, the patients. It's very instantaneous. And I'll be posing this to Dr. Raymond now. What role does technology play in providing that real-time communication and real-time updates, transparent communication between patients, insurers, and healthcare providers?
Thank you. One major role that technology plays is reduction of human error, which is key, especially in the kind of business that we find ourselves in. Human error is one of the major things. Over the years, I've discovered that we have overpaid some providers, just like what Dr. Salako was talking about 5-10 years ago. You see that all of these things were being done manually, and then you will make payment to hospitals, and they didn't get the alerts, and the next you start telling you have not paid, or probably when you make payments it's not documented properly, or when an officer is trying to key the wrong values in. So these have been major issues. Human errors. Well, there's lack of predictive models too. You cannot predict what happens in the business. You cannot look at the future and project, into the future. All of this has been eradicated by the use of technology on the part of the insurer, which is the HMO. It has helped to make good business intelligence. You can see clearly on monthly basis. I see the data, and I'll be able to make informed decisions on businesses. And also for the providers, it has helped them to be able to get accurate claims paid out to them. It's what you do that you get. There's no duplication, there's no overbilling, there's no misappropriation of accounts and all of those things. So it has helped providers too. And most important is that it clears their cash flow, because reimbursement is fast for them. So it is their cash flow and gives confidence in the system. And most importantly, for the enrollee, who happens to be the most important person in the hierarchy of stakeholder, satisfaction, basically. Satisfaction, they're happy, they stay back, there's no long wait in the hospital. I think one of those things that irritate an enrollee. All of us are enrollees, one thing or the other. I'm also an enrollee too. And even as EMD of HMO, when I get to the hospital sometimes, I don't want to stay long. Apart from the fact that they know me and they want to fast track it. No, I want to get there and let it be done. And I've actually tested it many times on my own to see how satisfied I am, not because I'm the operator, but also as an enrollee. So satisfaction is key. And that's for us, which happens to be the go-between, who happens to be the insurers are the go-between, and that's the joy we see. Because when an enrollee is satisfied, you are sure that your business is moving forward. And that is the essence of us being the business in the first place. So technology has actually, from start to finish, as is the processes, it has given us an idea of what the future will look like. I can clearly tell you what 2025 will look like with my data. I can tell you, okay, this is what I need to do. These are the business models that I need to put in place. Clear data has been given to me. And for the providers too, on their end, you see that things are easier for them. You can communicate better. There is better communication between the provider and also the insurer. And definitely the enrollee, who happens to be the most important person, like I said earlier, is happy. And that's the joy that we see. Whenever they go to hospital, they get the best of care, And medical outcomes are what is most important. And the most important is that apart from the fact that they are well taken care of, the outcome from the hospitals too, when they go back home and they give us our feedback, is what gladdens our heart. So all of this, technology has enhanced it and has made it faster and easier.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very detailed response. So building upon that, two things that stood out in your response was analytics and how you're able to predict and do proper forecasting with data, and also fraud detection, which is very important. I mean, when we're talking of the adoption of insurance in our country, we know definitely fraud is a huge part of the operational expense of every insurer here. And when we can detect fraud better, we can reduce the operational cost and ultimately reduce the cost of premiums. So I would like this to be a question that everyone gets to touch on how technology has actually improved the fraud detection and fraud analytics process in your various companies, and how that ultimately impacts patient and enrollee experience. So I think we'll start from this side, and then we can get to you.
All right. Thanks, Jude. I think the key thing is when we look at the advent of technology, right, and the different stacks that are available in the environment now, speaking specifically to artificial intelligence, everything starts from data, right? All roads lead back to data. What do I mean by this? When we look at what is analyzed as the time travel quadrants, right? You have the past, the present, and then the future, which mirrors the lineage of how data is originally fashioned into three divisions. You've got the diagnostic, the prescriptive, and then the predictive. Now, interestingly, when you look at how that mirrors into the time quadrants, diagnostic being for the past, because you're able to use data to make an informed decision based on what you got from the past. And then when you look at the prescriptive, which is the present, you want to say, oh, okay, what does this data tell me? And then what do I do with it? And then predictive for the future. It's the same way that you essentially have in those quadrants: business intelligence, data science, data analytics, machine learning before artificial intelligence. It just goes towards the future that way. Now, what am I driving at? Because of going back historically, we didn't have what could take us to the future, right? It would stop in the past and in the present. And so there was no machine learning that was learning as to what the data was being built on. There was no artificial intelligence to take it further. Now, there's machine learning that is using all sorts of different models, whether it's supervisory, unsupervised, or as opposed to regressional analysis and all those things that used to be done in the past. And now what that does is it lets every organization that embraces technology, particularly artificial intelligence, to make quantum leaps. What do I mean? It means that I can apply this technology to the data that I have in the past and in the present, and I can use it, like Dr. Raymond said, to predict what's going to happen in the future. And that's where you now have machine learning taking, things back from the origin, learning and taking all the data computationally, right? Connecting, especially when we have connected devices these days with the Internet of Things, looking at all those permutations and getting more and more intelligent. Now we have things like Gemini and ChatGPT and all the likes, right? It's essentially the future. And when you look at the quadrants that it has birthed, it has unlocked fraud and detection. It has also unlocked the capability to be able to describe consumer behavior and future trends. Unlike before, where you would naturally guess and say, well, past year, maybe the consumer had XYZ diseases, right? So like, for example, what we used to do is we would look at our data and say, X number of people had malaria between the months of June and September, right? And why? We'll say, okay, maybe because the rainy season. But those were things that were based on assumptions. What is now happening is technology is unlocking facts And as you're able to apply to past models, present data, you're able to also predict further, which is where fraud lies. Dr. Raymond said something about double billing and accounting. Somebody somewhere will just be tired. I think Doc was saying that you keep people in the office and just add one extra zero, and that thing can cause epic calamity within the whole organization, right? So it's things like that that technology has helped, and it's interesting that the next 5 to 10 years, or even before then, there are going to be smarter things that are going to be showing up. I'll pause there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So moving that to the other end of the panel, I'd like to learn from your perspective how data analytics, because we've heard a lot from Dr. Tunde and how predictive analysis can help in the projection of a business. I'd like to understand how predictive analytics on your side, how it helps to improve the outcomes of a business generally.
I think that it helps to reduce fraud and reinforce trust. So on the aspect of reducing fraud is you have to look at it both from before. I like to look at it before we pay claims, and then after we pay claims, right? And so before the payment, you're already trying to see if there are billing errors, right? Of course, when people are tired, they make mistakes. Somebody wanted to write 1 and added, and you have 10, or they wanted to put in the quantity and they thought that it was the price, and then you're seeing 10,000 for quantity and wondering what happened, right? And so it can help to highlight those. So there are things that we call red flags that are based on rules that we have set on our system to say that, oh, okay, when you see this and this is automated, and so it flags it. So what someone might have missed when they are manually looking at the claim or evaluating the claim to pay, to vet it, right? It's already popped up, and then what we're now supposed to do is just to override. So you can now use human intelligence to now say, okay, whatever has been highlighted based on the rules that has been saying, you can now override and say, okay, I think that, oh, okay, perhaps this is what happened here. So you can use maybe clinical judgment to sort of adjust that. And so, but what it makes it possible for us is to see at once everything that may be wrong, that may be a red flag, and then override as much as possible. It shortens the time that would have happened, and makes it easier going forward. So the payment is faster, of course, but it also helps us to educate the everybody as well, because it's clear where maybe there have been errors, and then you say, okay, this is what went wrong, and this is how you can prevent it going forward, right? And that is on both the provider side and also on the operator side as well. Post-payment, of course, the same thing also applies, but I think that post-payment, there's also some sort of physical intervention that may have to take place, because really, on the insurer side, you only know what has been presented. You don't know what really happened on the provider side. So we truly, honestly, cannot take out the human factor. What it can help with is to make it easier for the humans to work, right? So that's the way we look at it. But of course, it also helps with analytic power. It helps you, like Dr. Raymond has said, to have your data at once, so you're better able to make decisions quicker. You're able to see at a glance what's going on in the business and where to come in, where to step up, where to iterate things so that it's better for all around.
Thank you very much for that. So before we get to our final question, I'd like to have Muyiwa touch on challenges and benefits of actually moving from manual to an AI-powered process in claims assessment. Basically, digital transformation, when that moves from manual to AI-powered, what are points you see AI playing, different verticals you see AI coming in to improve the process, and what have the outcomes been like?
All right, thank you for that question. Yeah, challenges. I think we've been mentioning like some of the bottlenecks the health sector insurance having, and the advent of AI has actually helped in like diverse ways in reducing or stopping some of those bottleneck. And we'll start with maybe like I want to start with first maybe paper processed claims, right? Is always like overwhelming, right? There was a day someone go to the hospital and want to see the doctor, and you just see like load of paper claims on the decks, right, of the doctor, and I'm like, what is happening here? All right, but the advent of like solutions, AI solutions, have helped to like elevate or eradicate that process. So now you have a paperless process, right, in the industry, and that has really helped in terms of time, right, because, and also like cost effectiveness, okay, because after the provider has like, write on these claim forms, they need to like send it to the insurer for payment and all that, a whole lot of time, and they need to pay, right? Transportation fee, whether you are sending it to Korea or whatever, all right? But the introduction of solutions, all right, especially like automation, claims automation, right? Claims submission has also helped like clear all these challenges. Now you get to the doctor's office, you don't even know whether they have insurance, right? Whether they have insurer in their portfolio they are attending to on all that. So automation has helped like clear that. Then also like issues around data entry, right? I think we've all mentioned that earlier. Issue around data entry as well, like all those errors. Now we have like a standardized process where you can just go into a portal, right? Just click on, few buttons, and you get the right documentation that you need, and you just forward it. So it helps to standardize that process, and it's very seamless. So with all these challenges, all right, so AI solutions has helped like stop and reduce some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Moyowa. So my final question will go to Dr. Raymond and Dr. Tunde. I'd like to learn what other ways you think the healthcare sector, particularly healthcare insurance and technology, can collaborate to improve, to basically stay innovation and improve patient outcomes.
All right, thank you very much. Before then, I would like to add to what we were mentioned, the importance of technology and movement from old ways to new ways. So the major challenge there that I was talking, I was flashing back to the past of what happened when we're moving. It was challenging because the movement itself, people are very lethargic when it comes to change. And that was one of the major challenges that we had, not on the part of the organization, on the part of the provider, because it was a major issue. And we're still having it right now. With over 17,000 providers you have in Nigeria. When I saw that you have 10,000 numbers, I was like, yeah, you still have a long way to go, because in Lagos alone you got over 10,000. So, and that is lethargy. So it's so hard. Then the cost is also an issue. Cost is also an issue to be able to move into and be able to maintain. That is also an issue. Now, fast forwarding to your question, what technology can do in healthcare, especially for our own industry and also the providers and also the enrollee, is a handshake. A proper handshake between the provider and the insurer will give a better outcome for the enrollee. Now, what is the handshake? The handshake is that beyond the processes that we have, the procedure itself, if AI can come to the procedure. Many years ago, we couldn't believe that I've started beginning to see the robots now performing surgeries, and they are very, very accurate, even more than what someone can do. It happens to my wife. She had the surgery in the UK, and I was shocked when I saw it. And the major one that was actually before the campus of my mind was a medical doctor here in Nigeria that came to the United Kingdom for a surgery. He had 4 surgeries. He had gone to India, 4 different surgeries. He had gone to India, and he went to the United Kingdom for a surgery. And it was actually performed by, I don't know whether it's AI or a machine. And it was also, the woman was there to supervise it. And when he showed me the site of the surgery, I was shocked. Around here, there was nothing. I couldn't see it. Almost spotless to know that somebody had a surgery around this area where they had a lot of vessels. You can imagine. So that is technology. And that's what we have moved from processes now to procedures. So what technology can do is to help, and AI can do, is we're getting to the stage very, very soon that AI will start performing all of these procedures that women do, but under the supervision of women, definitely, because you can never rule out the woman effort. I've checked the patient before that I needed to do a physical examination on the patient, and I was able to pick a growth, but because of I'm experienced with my hand, I could auscultate, I could palpate and check, and I could feel it that, okay, I was double sure that was a growth, and just before the patient went to scan, I was able to say, okay, this growth, and I could define it. Oh, it's not attached to the skin, it's not doing this, this is particular thing that it is. But what AI will only do is, okay, there's a growth here. It might not be able to tell you exactly what kind of growth it is. So the human part is also there. But just like what Doc said, it makes the work of the woman easier and faster. So the future is the proper handshake between process and procedure for a better outcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Raymond. I think if I'm going to lay on that, when we stretch it a little bit further to the future, it's going to be at the intersection of technology, data, on the human, right? And that's birthing a concept that is called embedded health, right? That also, historically started from embedded finance, right? And then moved into what we call embedded insurance. Now, concept of embedded health. And what do I mean by this? We're seeing a very bright future where things that we used to imagine or see in sci-fi movies or see in documentaries are playing out in real life, right? As of today. And I think one of the things that happened is COVID really fast-tracked so many things we didn't even see coming, right? So when we talk about delving into healthcare, in insurance or healthcare proper itself, you're going to start to have situations whereby, number one, there'll be the capacity to have predictive premiums at some point, right? Which, honestly speaking, will save everybody nightmares. Because what traditionally happens now is the customer, who is king in our economy, is always a race to the bottom, right? And so this still happens, right? Where you're going for a bid for a customer. Let me digress a little bit. And you have like 7 different companies all lined up, like they're coming for a job interview, right? And they tell you to show up at 1 p.m. But God help you if you go into that meeting at 7 p.m. and you're still waiting. But when you think about the brand and you say, is this people? You say, let me just wait, right? It's going to shift a lot. There are going to be major shifts, I believe, in pricing, right? Which would honestly help both sides of the fence. Now, to other core things, I particularly am fascinated about drug discovery and development. And I think that's one role that's one area that artificial intelligence is going to play a very, very, very strong role. There's a company called Turbine AI, and because of this new technology stack, they're able to make iterations on data as they continue to discover new drugs, new chemical entities. It takes a very long process for a drug to be approved by the FDA. Let's use the global standard. Now, when we come to NAFDAC, that's a different story entirely. But it takes a very lengthy process either ways, right? I think AI is going to play a very significant role in that. And then finally, when it comes to the context of personalization, right? Coming back to insurance now. So you want a situation where you have a cohort of everybody in this room with different body systems, different dynamics, but everybody's on the same plan, and they just put everybody on bronze or gold or silver, as most companies do. It would start to shift gradually towards there will be empirical decisions that will make them know that, okay, Tunde should be on bronze, this chairman should be on gold, Doc should be on silver, platinum, etc., because there's the data that can back it up, right? Because at the end of the day, what is insurance supposed to do? It's supposed to bridge the gap and protect. But there's no point in you having a protection that doesn't work for you, right? So I think that hyper-personalization is a trend that would also unlock. I'll stop there. Thank you.
I think that deserves a proper round of applause. All right. At this point, I'd like to move this to the audience. I believe this has been a very power-packed session, and we would have people who have questions that they would like to ask the speakers before we wrap up this session. Are there questions from the audience?
Okay, my name is Dayo. I work with the strategy team of Lasako Assurance PLC, and it was an awesome session. Let me put it that way. On the top of my head, really. I just want to sum what everybody discussed, what the contributions and all that to, like, let me say 4. Accessibility. I think that was one thing automation and technology is doing and is going to continue to do for us. How do I mean? Now, there are about 34% of financially excluded people in Nigeria, really. And one area also that this has touched is healthcare. You understand, the penetration rate is also very, very low, really. So if we're able to get it right, then financial inclusion also definitely in one way or the other is going to be touched. Then we also look at fast claim processing and other. Really, one thing that insurance had not been able to bridge really is that trust. And with automation and technology, claims is definitely going to be faster, and that trust is going to be bridged. Then thirdly, we talk about operational efficiency, which is also one thing that also drives the bottom line of all that, which technology is also going to improve. At the end of the day, ultimately, the bottom line, which is profitability. Then I will also touch on the leaning and agility that we're also looking at these days, because that's also what Dr. Lola said is also going to help us achieve that, where we don't need to have too much of people in the organization to do. That's why I like what Prime Coracel is doing, really. And it's also going to permit the industry at large. And I think that's about it. But one area that I've not heard, as we've been discussing, is the area of regulation, really. How are we engaging the regulatory bodies to key into these fantastic initiatives? Thank you.
All right. Well, regulators. I'm careful to, why? Because I'm wearing 2 caps, so that's why. I'm one of the escorts of body of HMOs, MDs of HMOs, and I know the tough. We're still discussing it with Dr. Tunde now, how it's difficult to be able to get the regulators to understand, what process is all about. This has been ongoing for years. You can see a lot of stuff that they were doing in the private sector, and they have the larger number basically. They have a very number basically. When you look at all the private health insurance that we have done in Nigeria, I don't think we have done up to 1 million. In number of private health insurance, but the larger number is from the public, from state health insurance schemes and federal government, NHI. But well, I know they're doing a whole lot in that sense, but we are not seeing it basically. So how do we engage them? We have been engaging them, and I think the advocacy should come more from the providers, not only the operators alone, and also the people that actually feel the brunt, which every one of us, we should be able to start engaging the regulators, even from the media, to start telling them, because it's very careful. We are our own regulators. We are always very careful when we have conversation with them. What we can do is to present opportunities to them and say, okay, this is what you can do. But I believe that more of advocacies, they will be able to have understanding of what this works for. And you'll be so shocked that that even with the technology and the exposure that we have, individually they know about it, but the problem is the collectively don't know. I don't know what is happening. You can imagine individually when you speak to them, they know that, oh, this thing should work, But by the time they come together, it's difficult to get that thing done from where we are. So I think it's a hydra-headed challenge that everybody must be part of. The providers must cry for it, the enrollees must cry for it, and we'll see it come into play. But to say that we've not been engaging them, we have been engaging them, and and I know Dr. Salako has been doing a lot in that area of stakeholder engagement, especially, yes, he's been his field. So he's been a forefront person talking to the government on how well this should be done, both in insurance and health tech. So we're doing our bit, and I want everybody to support it so that we can have a proper inclusion. Thank you.
Well, I think I'll just, Dr. Raymond has explained it, he said it all. The only thing I will add is, to your point, innovation will always precede regulation. That's the honest truth, right? And so you find out that most times regulation is playing catch up, right? What I see that might probably be a change without layering it is there needs to be some form of evolution and growth of what we call supervisory technology, subtech or regulatory technology, that the regulators themselves are able to buy into, so that they also can say, oh, we have tech, we're using these things. Because at the end of the day, who is at the center of all of this, right? It's the consumer. The idea of regulation is to protect the consumer, right? Unfortunately, the interpretation means other things in our claims. But in all sincerity, I think there's been major shifts over the past 3 to 5 years, right? With the advent of, one, change in leadership, and then also the kind of things that we're seeing, right? There's a lot of embracing, and there's a lot of dialogue. At least now we're talking, right? Which is a good start. Before, we're not even talking. If it was stay in your camp, we'll be in our camp. We'll talk to you over the wall and stuff like that, So honestly, it's a continuous conversation. We don't know, for the health insurance industry specifically, where we have the NHIS that's changed to the NHIA now, there's still a lot being unpacked, right? And I think things will get ready to get there. Let me just stop and not go into that water. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, my name is Dunio Aladokun. I work for Salam General Insurance. So I think these panelists deserve an extra hand. They did justice to the topic. So mine is just a kind of a remarks to make emphasis on regarding the interesting time ahead with introduction of AI in the healthcare sector. Let's say at the peak of coronavirus pandemic, I was following through so many presentations and what have you, and I stumbled across this research regarding rDNA. Very interesting, where cancers can be treated, and you can have a personalized treatments and inoculation for particular diseases. But to us is a concern, because most of these developments is very far from us. We only hear them. And obviously, if we want to wait on the government to bring it close, we are certainly going to wait endlessly. So my encouragement to this engagement is that most of these innovations are being brought in by the private sector. I think it's high time we begin to leverage on conversations like this to see how the HMOs, the medical organizations here, can begin to extend their partnerships, and collaboration to some of these organizations to bring this into the country. The problem is not about money. The problem is about availability. If it is available and we can deliver it, the money will actually come out. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oyekolade Oyediran. I came here in my personal capacity, and I want to thank you for the panel session. I want to ask, is there an hindrance to sharing health records for HMO providers in order to have predictive solutions? Now, the reason why I'm asking is because I was using a previous provider. I go to a hospital, they take my records, and the company changes its provider. You go to that same hospital and they don't have your record. Or I'm just thinking that, is there a plan to have a technology sort of where your information is stored, so any HMO can just plug in, they see your record in the past, maybe past administration of HMO or this year, to be able to give an advice or know an outcome that is coming to you, because it happens. And just in that case, I had an issue where if the doctors knew earlier what was happening to me, they would have given a better answer. But because they didn't have my previous record, I had to go through the same process, and unfortunately I had an issue. So that's my question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. It's possible, but I will say it in two ways. First of all, it's possible with the HMO. Your data, most of the data of our enrollees are being captured and have been stored. We have those data, but hospitals too do have their own data of treatment, protocols, discharge, and all of those things. And same information based on our own pre-authorization code that we give, we have those data too. For my organization, for example, we have a process that we use, like a CRM, for example, that when you go to the hospital, immediately the hospital calls our customer care. The last visit to the hospital and what you were treated for will prop up, not from the hospital, from our own DBase. So we have that and we can relate with it. However, that would have been possible to say that, okay, you're moving from one hospital to another, you have that data. If you have a national data that is centralized for all. So anywhere you go to, if you go to NHS, for example, in the United Kingdom, any hospital you go to, your data is there. That's a national data. But privately, you can have your data with your HMO. So even if you move to another hospital, your data still resides with the HMO. Do you understand? But you might not have that data in that hospital, but you reside with the HMO. And because of data protection policies, those data for any enrollees to be released, it must be released to the enrollee, and you need the consent of the enrollee to release it. Even hospital, we do not release it except the enrollee gives a concession to that, and you will sign. We have a form that you have to fill, and you sign, and the stamp will put on it to show that, okay, you want us to release. To what extent do you want all the data to be released? So these are the things that we do. So possible with the HMO, but with the hospital, or moving to another hospital, it might not be possible except we have national data. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I know we still have some questions, but let's appreciate our panelists. They did a fantastic job. It was amazing. Thank you all so much.